In your resource-based economy, there will still be jobs of some sort, whether it's even scientists, technicians, engineers, computer designers, whatever.
Right.
Now, I've got a job, but my next-door neighbour hasn't. Isn't that creating inequality? And why should I do the job anyway?
Say the last part again?
And why should I do my job anyway? My next-door neighbour, he's doing pottery all day, you know, he's quite happy.
Does he have financial support? Does he financial...
Well, you're saying everybody's got abundance.
Well, no, if I understand you correctly, the labor that's required in a resource-based economy is substantially minimal than what you see today. And the big difference between what you're doing in a resource-based economy versus what you're doing today, in most cases at least, is that it has a direct social tie. It supports you just as it supports everyone else. So it's a different train of thought. If you develop a value system, all of us have things that we like to do, things that we enjoy doing, and I think many of those things have to do with some type of labor, if you consider it as such. Investigative things. I love research. I read lots of books. I like to invent things whenever I have time to do so. I am certainly happy. I would personally be perfectly happy to run part of the city system just for my own satisfaction, to know that it's going to keep the system working, it's going to be efficient, and the appreciation of everyone else. You could exchange the labor where your commitment in a resource-based economy, say in the city structure, would be nominal, so nominal to the effect of just a few hours a week in this rotation that everyone in the society works with. It's about people learning that you don't have to have monetary reward to sustain yourself. I mean, we're not that lazy, are we? You know, it's like, I really believe the conditioning of the modern culture is such that people have a knee-jerk reaction now to not want to do any type of labor. They want to get monetary reward for everything on one side, simply because the labor is usually irrelevant. I mean, there's a great majority of the occupations out there serve only a monetary and employment function. They don't contribute to anything. People that, the real satisfaction of people in, the most satisfaction-oriented jobs, if that makes sense, tend to be ones that help people. I know lawyers that have been working for tobacco companies their whole life in criminal enterprises, and they retired and they went straight into pro bono work just to cleanse their soul. You know, there is a natural, I believe in this society, because the pressure for income is removed, because the needs, the necessities of life, the needs of society is managed and maintained. That's the design of society, and access abundance. People will volunteer left and right to want to contribute and to help. The improvement that they make to the society is an improvement that comes back to them. Self-interest becomes social interest in this type of arrangement. And I think even if you had 40% of the society utterly lazy, you still only need a fraction of the other percentage to pick up the slack. And I guarantee you that they'd be happy to do so too.
So you don't think people with jobs and people without jobs would in itself create some sort of inequality?
I don't believe, first of all, that no one would, quote, just not do anything. And I think that people would want to help. I think people would have their artistic, personal interests, but I do deeply believe that, I mean, in America, one of the most capitalist and self-indulgent and narrow societies on the planet that's been utterly groomed into this horrible state of mind of just blind, naked self-interest, we have in America, a volunteerism that I believe it's in the companion guide. You remember what it is, Tom? Remember the statistics on volunteerism in America? But it was colossal. I couldn't believe it when I read it.
45%.
It was amazing to see how many people, most people, by the way, that volunteer are actually in the lower income brackets, which I found fascinating too. Those that are most rewarded in the system are much, much less likely to contribute. It's those that actually see the basis of humanity, that live in the common world. They're the ones that want to help. So that's another tidbit for you to consider. So people will do so. They've proven it. We have a huge, huge volunteer nonprofit volunteer sector, if you will. And in fact, there's a book I recommend that talks about that explicitly called The End of Work by Jeremy Rifkin. I recommend that to you because it's a really brilliant point that he makes. And he's not actually an avocation of what we talk about. I try to get in touch with him, it doesn't matter. But he at least points this out specifically, that in the future, because of the automation of labor, because of the lack of ability for people, majority of people to be employed, other sectors will come into fruition. And they'll be very, very different. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that particular angle, but his understanding of the nonprofit sector as a base support. We're in a society where everyone is trained to be as capitalistic and ruthless as possible is an amazing, to me, testament of some deep down human attribute that really does want to help each other, and they're willing to do so. So I checked that book out if you want more information on that point.
Hi, Peter. Paul, I came all the way from Chicago to talk to you. Long flight.
Great.
So basically, forgive me if I kind of go on for just a moment. Just grant me a little time because I put in time to get here. I've been working kind of behind the scenes on how to do that transition that this gentleman and the more mature gentleman in the back spoke about. And I think that it would be a fantastic way, but I wanted to kind of preface that by asking you some questions.
Okay.
So people want to do more, and many simply don't have the time, resources, or influence to get out there and say, hi, this is what we would like to do. How about you jump on board? Because they have jobs, because they have debt, because they're going to continue to have bills and things that are going to keep them mentally drained outside of what media is doing already. So how would you suggest the tired people do? What would you suggest for these tired people to do, or how to get them into a transitory state outside of simply spamming links to their friends to try to get them to check out this information?
Well, again, that's I think a per case basis type of question. You know, for the average wage slave that's racked in debt and can't think about anything, forget any type of social activism. They're not concerned about the Middle East wars. Everything's locked in. This is actually, in my mind, I think intrinsically built in the system. As an aside, the distraction of this oppressive deprivation that permeates, especially now, serves the establishment in a strange way because it keeps people so narrowly encompassed, and that's essentially your point. So they don't have the means or the energy to think about these things because they can barely take care of themselves. Right. It's a sad state of social control. I think is somewhat realistic in the minds of those that are around that want to maintain their power establishment. But I don't want to pull out. It's not a conspiratorial notion. It's a natural element, gravitation of the system for people to maintain their positions. But to answer your question, I think you'd have to take it on a per case basis and speak with the position, each individual, get their background, and get them to relate the fact that what they're doing most likely, well, first of all, their entire position, of course, is oppressive because of the system. So there's point one, and then you hone up to their actual level of personal. Their actual personal relationship level of what their occupation is. Do they have a family? Oh, you see what I mean? You can't just I can't blanketly tell you, or in fact goes for almost any kind of communication, some universal to approach anyone. But if they're stuck in a position of debt, you're going to have a hard time one way or another. If they're narrowly defined, if they can barely support themselves. But just remind them that the oppressive system is what's keeping them down, and if they want out of it, they have to make some type of stride,
Okay. I mean, that's definitely a good point. It kind of possibly leads into the next question I had about, in the film, a dollar amount was referred to in terms of what it costs to go to war and how much, if that money were to be put towards building infrastructure, how it could have been done on a global basis. Is there a particular dollar amount that it would cost or take to initiate either a survey or building this test city?
Yeah, that's a good question. I asked Jock about the test city, and I can't remember the carrying capacity of that city, but at that stage he said it was rather small, and he quoted about $1 billion, which I think might have been rather low, but it's really hard to financially foreshadow any of that. The survey is something that really has almost been done in a lot of ways already by private corporations. It's simply getting that data. We can't even get straight data out of the oil companies anymore. I mean, it's really hard when you have proprietary institutions that want to protect their self-interest, and since scarcity is one of the biggest drivers of demand, at least profitable demand, you enter into a world that you really can't get honest information. So it's really just stopping it and making them give the information that they have in one level. Right. And then it's using advanced technologies to scour the earth and survey, which there are many forms of radiation technology that can be used to see lots of attributes. There's a lot of technical things you can do, which would be extremely expensive. In my view, it would be done without expense.
Right.
I really, because you can't build this thing from the basis of money. You have to go straight to the resources and resource management and do it efficiently. You have to do it right. not with the the cost efficiency, which will inevitably hinder you. So I really can't answer that question. It's hard to.
I mean, it was only in a sense to reference it of
I've got to move on now, because that's 2 questions, yeah?
Okay.
Okay, give somebody else a chance. Anybody on the right here?
I might talk to you after if you would.
Yeah, we'll catch up.
Hello. One of the problems I've found in society today is a lot of people have such short attention spans. So when I send them the link to this film and they see 2 hours and 40 minutes, they immediately close it, and I can't handle that. You know, I can't watch that. Anything that's more than 3 minutes long, people just don't have the time. You know, they're too busy playing their games, watching their vain entertainment, you know, X Factor and all this nonsense. And every time you send, I have a lot of friends online that I talk to. I send them links, I show them these things, and they just simply cannot be bothered. What do we do about people like that? How do we get these people to see and to realize and to understand that these are the kind of things that they need to be interested in and need to talk about and think about?
I think in communication, you just have to be more severe in your reasoning for watching the film. You know, one of the kind of second thoughts that, well, inadvertent realities of the way the films are constructed is they're in sections. So I recommend maybe sending sections. Say, "Ooh, watch this section on the monetary system. It's, you know, part 2." And, you know, or if you know people that are interested in sociology and human behavior, "Ooh, you got to see this section on part 1 regarding human behavior and human nature." I don't know, try to do something like that. But I hear you. I made the film 2 hours. I could have made it much longer, by the way.
I kind of wish you did.
Yeah, I almost broke it into 2 films, but I wanted to be as concise as possible, but yet not miss anything, because I got so tired of people complaining about addendum and, you know, all the things, because it just brings up everything and then it doesn't explain it, because, you know, it's a 2-hour film, and the intent wasn't to be fully based there, but moving forward certainly was. So I did that distinctly because I knew that I believe that, you know, most people really do watch it though. I mean, the 4 million views on YouTube, and some people have said they've seen it like 20 times. I'm like, God, you really sat through the thing 20 times?
I've seen it about 8.
Well, see, there you go. See, it's not universal. So if you encounter people that simply don't want to take the time, I guess just move on and go to the next, you know, the next subject.
Yeah.
Are you planning to do the next movie about how to get there?
Well,
you'll have a lot of ideas, I'm sure.
The thing about how to get there, it's not really conducive into a movie format, because as I was mentioning, and that's why I ended it the way I did, as a very overarching aesthetic gesture, emotional gesture, a cathartic gesture. The transition is so unpredictable. There's so many things that could happen that would completely change the path, not necessarily the direction of where we want to go, but who knows what could happen as the instability that's obviously showing itself now continues to go. So I'm going to make more presentations in the movement and more documents in the movement. I've talked about it at length in different contexts, but I do plan to make a transition, narrated, simple though, not a movie. It probably won't have any music, to describe other, you know, angles for that.
Because the ability to dream is the strongest and the main ability of human being.
Sure. Yes. Yeah, thank you.
Good afternoon. Just want to say thanks for a great film. My question is just purely curious, following on from that gentleman's comment over there about trying to shorten the information so that people can. I'm wondering, I'm sure you've been asked, or I'm wondering if you thought it was possible to reduce the ideas in all 3 films into maybe 17 or 24 minutes. I'm talking about possibly doing I'm talking about, have you ever considered doing a TED Talk, something like that?
Well, I mean, all 3 films. The first film is its own life, because it was before my interest emerged in this sustainable resource-based economy, which emerged at the end of Addendum. So there's kind of a divide between the 3 films right in the center as far as their contexts. Obviously, they're interrelated, and, you know, corruption level and all of that stuff, and what the system reinforces, and all of that. I have offers for TEDx. I'm going to be doing. There's different TED arrangements. Obviously, I will do my best in the 20-minute time frame when I have those opportunities. And, you know, like tomorrow, I'm reducing what usually is like a 3-hour type of lecture to 45 minutes, which has been brutal enough. So I'm doing my best.
Yeah, I'm just... Thank you.